Hi everyone, welcome to part 1 of the tutorial for Deep River Blues written by Doug Watson. For this lesson we are focusing on Tommy Emmanuel's version. But as always, let's start by rolling the Patreon credits, and today I can welcome Norbert among the top tier patrons. If you need some extra help with the tutorials or you just want to support me so I can keep making these videos, then please head over to the Patreon page and see what is on offer. For support without monthly payments, there is also a PayPal tip jar. Both links are down below in the description. So here we are, Tommy's most requested song on this channel and voted higher in each poll than any other tune. Yes, even higher than Classical Gas and Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I'm going to keep this introduction short, but I want to quickly mention the build of this tutorial since it is a little bit different than usual. The tutorial is split up into 4 parts. In part 1, this part, we look at the intro. Part 2 is about the second instrumental part, part 3 covers a single note solo, and part 4 is all about the accompanying part as well as the ending. Now that you know where to look for the information you want, let's get straight to business. Okay, so let's get to the intro section. Now, before we continue, I used 3 different versions of this tune by Tommy to compile the material for this lesson. The first one was the album version. The second one was the live version he recorded for his own YouTube channel. And the third one was a live version he played for, I think, Radio Bristol. I'll try and remember to put the links down below in the description. This also means that a lot of people have their own preferred version of this tune, and I try to incorporate each and every major variation that Tommy plays. Now, for the intro, there are 2 major variations, 2 different takes he does, and I'm going to stick to one single version or variation for the intro, and then for the first solo after I think the second verse in the song, I will feature the other variations. So if there are any licks in this intro that you hoped that would be here and they don't pop up in this video yet, then no worries, they will probably be in the video on the solo section. So enough talk, let's play through this intro section one time, and then as always all the explanation will follow. Okay, so there's already a lot of fun stuff in that intro section alone. Now, just to point out the obvious, I'm using a capo on the 2nd fret. This is because I'm teaching Tommy's version, so if you just learn what I'm going to explain you now, you can play along with his version too. I used a guitar with really clear position markings on the neck, so it wouldn't be too difficult to follow along. I will probably make some mistakes talking about the 7th and the 9th fret. You always have to add up 2 extra frets to what I'm explaining. Here we go. The intro section, we're starting out with an E dominant chord. Low E string, open E string, then 6th fret, middle finger on the D string, which is the 8th fret, so you always have to count up 2 extra frets. 6th fret on the D string, 7th fret on the G string, and then something really sneaky, something that Tommy changed. The normal chord voicing would be 6th fret, 7th fret, and then 5th fret with the index finger to play sort of the traditional E dominant voicing. And Tommy is leaving out the index finger. He's playing an open B string. Each and every time when he's playing this chord, he's actually removing the index finger and just playing an open B string. So 6th fret on the D string, 7th fret on the G string, open B string, pinky 7th fret on the high E string. Boom chick bass pattern is between the low E string and the D string. So, and straight away we are confronted with a piece of the melody that Tommy shifts around. In one version he starts dead on the first beat straight away with the first melody note. In a lot of other versions he actually starts on the second beat. In this version I chose to start the melody on the second beat, because that is what you will probably do throughout the rest of the song as well, because you always have to switch from an open chord all the way back up to the 7th fret, and it's just a little bit easier if you play the starting melody on the second beat instead of on the first beat. This is the first bar. Nothing too difficult, so you're starting out with just the low open E string, and then together with the thumb pick on the D string you play the high melody note 7th fret on the high E string. In between the two bass notes, index finger to that open B string, and then you remove the pinky so you get an open E string as well, and then back to pinky, the 7th fret, and you just round out the bass pattern. Sometimes Tommy adds in an extra chord tone in there to flesh out the transition to the next chord. And that last note is just something to fill it out a little bit. It's not part of the melody. One more time really slowly. Moving to a diminished chord voicing. Index finger, 5th fret on the D string, 5th fret on the D string, ring finger, 6th fret on the G string, middle finger, 5th fret on the B string, pinky, 6th fret on the high E string. And we're sticking to that low open E string, so this is an E diminished chord. The melody is kind of the same thing. Now we are playing that second melody note is on the G string now. That's the main difference. So now on the first beat, together with the low E bass note, that 6th fret on the high E string, index finger to the 6th fret on the G string, and now Tommy again removes the pinky and he often plays the 5th fret on the B string together with the open E string, which is the same note. It's the exact same thing. He often plays those last two melody notes as double stops. First, the open E string together with the 5th fret, and then adding the pinky back in on the 6th fret, and again picking both strings. The technique is sort of the same thing as in the first bar, so melody note together with the low bass note, in between the two bass notes, the index finger, 6th fret on the G string, together with the bass note on the D string, the D string together with the B string and the high E string open, and then again, in between the bass notes, and just rounding out again the bass pattern as in the first bar. That's the second bar. One more time. You might also notice that each time when I have the opportunity, I try to play two strings using the thumb pick. So if I'm not combining the bass line together with a melody note, I always try to get two notes out of the thumb pick each time. So open string, two strings, open E string, two strings. I only do this whenever there's nothing on top of that bass note, but that really helps to accentuate that backbeat. Tommy does this all the time throughout the whole song. Each time he sees the opportunity, he will play two notes with the thumb pick. Let's pick those first two bars, yes, it's only the beginning. Let's pick those first two bars and put them back to back with each other. Each time when that D bass note is on its own, I try to include the G string as well. Let's add the next bar. And now this is where the fun starts. Tommy is starting to add in those micro tone bends, those quarter tone bends. We're heading back to the same E dominant 7 voicing. low open E string, 6th fret with the middle finger on the D string, ring finger, 7th fret on the G string, pinky 7th fret on the high E string, the exact same starting point as we used in the first bar. So the first two melody notes are just together with the bass note, in between the two bass notes, and then moving the pinky to the 8th fret, picking it together with the bass note on the D string, and bending that note on the 8th fret just up slightly. This is not easy in the beginning, and it's going to get harder because now you're doing that bend on the 8th fret, quite a way up from the end of the neck, and this is actually a lot easier to do than what you will have to do in just a few bars. You will have to perform that very same bend on the 3rd fret, which won't make it easier at all. If you haven't got any experience doing bends, or you're an acoustic player only and haven't played electric guitar, try angling the pinky just a bit more in a diagonal angle to the string, and really try to get the pinky underneath the string. You only have to push it up a little bit. That's the idea you should get. It's also hard not to bend up everything at the same time. It should be only the pinky. I know that I still do it wrong every now and then when I'm playing it really slowly. Once it gets back up to speed, it's a little bit easier. So, and it's really not easy in the beginning. So just that slight bend up. If it really doesn't work, it actually sounds fine if you don't do the bend. But it's this icing on the cake that makes it really sound like Tommy. There's nothing wrong with that, and it just passes by so quickly. So if you really struggle with the bend, then just leave it out. And now we're moving on to a really sneaky trick. Tommy doesn't keep alternating the bass line. He just plays an open G string and an open B string, then adds in a bar across 3 strings, D string, G string, and B string on the 1st fret, and moves that up to the 2nd fret. What is the trick here? On that 1st fret, when you add in the bar, you strum with the back of the nails across the strings to produce a little rhythmic click along the way. And the technique here is picking the strings, G string and B string, strumming with the back of the nails on the bar, and then picking again with the index finger and middle finger as you move to the 2nd fret. And it's all index finger and middle finger. And by doing the strum, that note on the D string will sound out sort of on its own. Index finger, middle finger, strumming down, re-picking, adding in the bass note. Sneaky technique, but it really works in Tommy's version. And this is a strange fingering because I'm used to seeing Tommy take every concentrated effort he can to make certain fingerings as efficient as possible. And here he's playing the whole melody by just lifting the bar up and down. So what happens is you end up on that 2nd fret, 3, 4, removing the bar for an open B string, and then putting the bar back down for the melody note on the 2nd fret, removing the bar again for an open E string, and putting the bar back down for the melody note 2nd fret on the B string. So just that last part of the bar with the open string right before that. And it's all done just by lifting up the whole bar up and down. Whole bar, 3, 4, and then moving back to an E chord. Now those were the first 4 bars. Let me play those first 4 bars back to back all the way to where we are now. Moving again to an open E chord. Next bar. Nothing too difficult. You're starting on open strings, hammering on the index finger to the G string. So you're starting with an open G string, B string, E string, hammering on to the first fret, and just following that up with, again, the note on the D string, and I'm trying to catch that G string in the process. Open B string together with the A string bass note, and adding in the pinky on the second fret on the B string together with the bass note on the D string for the next melody note. That was perhaps the easiest bar to this point. Not too difficult either compared to the first few bars. This is what happens, just an arpeggio. You're still keeping down that E chord, but you're removing the pinky again. This time, that G note down below in the tablature is played with a thumb pick. So you basically have two open E strings, top and bottom, B string in between, and then two strings with the thumb pick. Then moving to, this is a C dominant chord with a G in the bass. So normally you would play C dominant chord like this. We're moving around a few notes, G in the bass, then middle finger, third fret on the low E string, index finger, second fret on the D string, ring finger, third fret on the G string, and then make sure the open B string cannot sound out, because that will really clash with that third fret on the G string. Lastly, adding in the pinky third fret on the high E string. So that's the chord. Picking low E bass string together with the index finger for me on the G string and the ring finger on the high E string. Removing the pinky for an open E string. Bass note on the D string. And if you can, try to get that G string in there as well. And then you're just shifting down those three fingers you have just shifted down one fret and switch the middle finger from the low E string to the second fret on the A string, and you have a B dominant 7th chord. And now on to the real challenge of the song. I'm going to play the next two bars in one go. You'll see in just a second why. That hurts in the beginning. I'm not going to lie to you. First, let's have a look at that B dominant 7th chord. So you're ending up in front of the beat on the correct chord voicing. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So the chord is already ringing out. You're starting with the bass note on the A string. Tommy, again, like he often does, he plays the low A string and the low E string by just fingering them or fretting them with the middle finger in one go. I still can't do this completely clean, so you will see me alternating between the A string and the low E string. If you can do it, I can do it if I really take my time and sort of get the fingering right. But while playing through the song, I still have to use the alternating fingering. So if it works for you, then just do the same thing. This is the melody for the first bar. I'm going to talk about that last bit in just a second. First, the first few beats of that bar are nothing too complicated. So bass note, again, I'm trying to play two notes with a thumb pick. Oh, two strings with a thumb pick, sorry. Third beat is just the top E string and the bottom E string together, both on the second fret, so ring finger down below on the low E string now, pinky on the second fret on top. Just picking together with the bass note, then an open B string in between, followed up by the bass note. Again, I'm trying to play two strings. And then the pinky swaps over to the third fret The middle finger also swaps over back to the A string. So what I'm doing is I'm first transferring the pinky to the 3rd fret. After that is done, I'm transferring the middle finger to the 2nd fret on the A string. But then you have to add in again one of those quarter tone blues bend on the 3rd fret, and this hurts in the beginning. So in the 8th fret it was still somewhat doable because you're so high up the neck. On the 3rd fret I really had to build some strength in my pinky just to get that going. For those of you who have played Windy and Warm, this will feel a little bit familiar, but the chord voicing around that bend is more difficult than it was in Windy and Warm. So that A minor chord in Windy and Warm allows for that bend just a little bit easier, but that B dominant voicing around the bend now, it really takes some time to make it sink into the fingers. Again, the same trick. Make sure you put your pinky a little bit in a diagonal angle underneath the string, allowing you to really push it up. If you just press straight down and you're going to try and push up the string in that fashion, it will never work, especially not this low on the neck. It's really hard in the beginning. Now I'm going to play through it again without doing the bend, and still it will sound fine. It will sound like a B dominant 7 chord with a raised 9 in there. Sounds fine. But that blues curl really is, or that little blues bend really is the icing on the cake. Now it's not easy to do in the beginning. Give your hand some time to try to get that bend in there. Really look for the correct position of the pinky, diagonal a little bit down, so you can really push up on the string, and over time it should come together. But this is by far the hardest part of the song. Once you get this down, everything that will follow it is actually going to feel easier, especially for the left hand. There's one little detail that I really want to bring your attention to, because I completely overlooked it. I expected Tommy to just play an arpeggio of the chord without adding anything else. And I always thought that he would play as the last note that 2nd fret on the G string. He doesn't. Tommy adds in the pinky on the 3rd fret, playing the blue note, which really rubs shoulders with that open B string you're going to play after that. So do remember that if you play this section, that last note is on the 3rd fret. It's not just a part of the chord, it's with the pinky on the 3rd fret. Then moving back to an open B string. Tommy uses that open B string that is still sounding out to transfer back up to the neck, because you're going back to the very first chord of the song. So make sure that open B string rings out. It will sort of mask that big transition back to the 5th and 7th fret. One more time, that B chord. So, and that clash all the way at the end, don't worry about that too much. You're going to get rid of that 3rd fret in just a second when you have to move back up, so it passes by really, really quickly. I can still feel my left hand trying to push up certain strings along with the pinky. It is the point, or you have to try to just bend up the pinky and leave everything as it is. But since you're down so low on the neck, even pushing up a little bit on that A string won't hurt the pitch or the correct tuning of the guitar too much. Let me play those 4 bars back to back with each other. Maybe let me do that transition to the next chord just one time. See, so while I move up, you have that open B string ringing out while you do the transition to the next chord. that is what should happen with that open B string. Let me play the first 8 bars all the way up to this point. Next bar is a funky rhythm, bit of a Jerry Reed picking pattern, and you're basically just keeping now the same chord as you played in the very first bar. The only difference is you are actually now using that index finger on the 5th fret. So instead of the open B string, you're now adding in the index finger, and it's only in this section, in this little funky section, that you're actually using the index finger for that chord. Picking pattern is thumb, thumb, chord, and I'm using the index finger, middle finger, and ring finger. And on the 4th beat, I'm already changing to the next chord, which is again the same diminished voicing as we saw in the 2nd bar. On the very last 8th note of the bar, we are already changing to the diminished voicing, the same thing we played in the 2nd bar, and we're going to play the same rhythm again, the exact same thing. So first bar, the only difference is in the first bar there was a chord on the very last 8th note. In the 2nd bar, Tommy leaves that out. If you're playing on autopilot and you do add an extra chord in that 2nd bar, nothing to worry about. It will sound fine. One more time, really slowly. That rhythm, thumb, thumb, chord, thumb, thumb, chord, thumb, chord. That's the rhythm for the first bar. And the 2nd bar is the exact same thing without the chord. Thumb, thumb, chord, thumb, thumb, chord, thumb, thumb is basically what Tommy's doing. And Tommy is making an effort, concentrated effort in making these chords really short, except for that first shift to the diminished chord. So you get really snappy chords. And this one he keeps ringing out. And then as soon as he enters the 2nd bar, again, really short. Really, if the rhythm feels difficult, try playing this with a metronome. The time, it's a bit of a timing displacement figure as well. You've got a figure of 3 and the rhythm is divided in 2, so you get this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the pattern. So that next bar is sort of a combination between the rhythm of the previous 2 bars and the melody you played all the way in the beginning, the 3rd bar of the intro. So we're keeping now the same chord shape, E dominant 7. Same rhythm, 1, 2, thumb, thumb, chord, thumb back to the low E string, and then together with the bass note on the D string, adding in the pinky again for that quarter tone bend. So again, pushing up the string lightly and back to an open E string. Back to the low open E string for a bass note, and then something really sneaky Tommy is doing is coming up. First, let me play this bar all the way through. Ending up on an open G string and an open B string. Now, we did that also in the first part of the intro. Tommy is going to play basically the same lick, shifted by 1 beat. So in the first part of the intro, on the 4th measure, Tommy initiated this lick on the 2nd part of the 3rd beat. Now he's going to start on the 2nd part of the 4th beat, and he's going to move a few things around. This is the lick, 3, 4. It probably looks familiar, but the workings are just a little bit different. Open G string and B string. open A string on the first beat. 3, 4. Picking, not strumming, on the first fret, so you're laying down the bar again. Picking, again with the index finger and the middle finger on the first fret, and then you're going to perform the percussive strum, as we did in the beginning, as you move to the second fret. So it's the same technique, but with an extra bass note in there. The strum is now on the second fret instead of on the first fret, but for the rest it's the same technique. 3, 4. That's what should be happening. 3, 4. And then you add in the middle finger on the third fret and you pick it straight after the strum, as we did before, strumming down and then coming back up with the middle finger to pick that high E string. And back to the low E string for the bass note. It can be confusing. It's sort of the same thing as we saw in the fourth measure all the way in the beginning of the intro, but it's shifted around just a little bit. Now Tommy does this each and every time, in each and every version I saw him play, so he really figured this out to work like this. And once you play it up to speed, it really passes by really, really quickly, but it's a really cool technique to get in there. So one more time. 3, 4. Back to the low E string. Let me complete the rest of the bar. 3, 4. In the previous time, you sort of had to jump up and down with that bar on the second fret all the time. Now you're just leaving it down. Melody note on the B string, and then remove the middle finger on the third fret and just play second fret on the high E string together with the second fret on the D string. And ending up with two open strings, the B string and the E string, before moving the thumb pick to a low open E string as well. And then we're ending up on the last 4 bars of the first intro section. Let me play those 4 bars all the way through. And then the last 4 bars. Let's have a look. Those first 2 bars are the easiest. So you're starting, you have those 2 open strings ringing out from the previous bar, adding in a plain and simple E major chord, just fretting second fret, first fret. Bass note. Then after that bass note on the D string, you jump straight away to a voicing E with a G sharp down below in the bass. So ring finger, 4th fret on the low E string, 1st fret on the D string, pinky, 4th fret on the G string, and then 2 open strings on top. You're going to play bass note first in front of the beat, more on the timing in just a second, and then those 3 top strings, the G string and the B string, should sound the same if your guitar is in tune. And just re-pick that top E string for the melody note. 3, 4. That was the timing, so that bass note on the low G sharp is in front of the 3rd beat. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. To F sharp dominant, Tommy uses the thumb over the side of the neck, so 2nd fret on the low E string, 2nd fret index finger on the D string, 3rd fret on the G string with a ring finger. It is perfectly possible to play it without the thumb over the side of the neck as well. The only thing you need is the high open E string as the melody note, so there's nothing else to add on top of the chord. So you can play it with thumb over the side of the neck. If you're not comfortable with that, just use the index finger. The chord fingering then becomes 2nd fret on the low E string with the index finger, middle finger on the D string, ring finger on the G string. With the thumb over the side of the neck. without the thumb. Works just as well. So this part revolves around a B chord. You're starting with the pinky up 1 fret, so instead of the 2nd fret, you start on the 3rd fret and you move that down to the 2nd fret straight away, together with the bass note. To the 2nd fret, bass note on the D string. Again, I'm trying to get the G string in there as well. And ending on an open E string before we launch into that single note run. One more time, those 2 bars. That's the open or the single note lick. Nothing too difficult. Open E string, B string, and then a pull off from the 2nd fret on the D string to an open string, to the 2nd fret on the A string to an open string, back to the 2nd fret, and then a pull off from the 1st fret to the open string, rounding it out with 3rd fret on the low E string to an open string. That's the lick. One more time, even slower. And then Tommy often rounds it out with another finger picking pattern, which is again centered around just an open E chord, bass note, open B string, and then as you hammer on to the 2nd fret with the pinky, you try to time out the bass note at the exact same time. Then you move on to the high E string, bass note separately, and then you again pick the 2nd fret on the B string. You're going to pull off, and basically the reverse technique. As you pull off to the open string, again you try to time that out with the bass note at the exact same point. That's what you should get, even slower. And try to get the hammer on as well as the pull off to fall exactly on the bass note. I often say try to time out the bass line. You shouldn't do that. The bass line should remain steady in terms of timing, and you should time out the hammer on and the pull off to land exactly on the bass note. So I'm going to try to explain that a little bit better in the future. Together with the open string lick. So what you have to do is, as soon as you finish that single note lick, get to that E chord as quickly as possible. Otherwise you're going to be too late to add in the melody. That was the full intro. Now, first let me play those last 4 bars back to back. 3, 4. Back to the chord on the 5th fret, 7th fret, and you're basically off for the rest of the song. Let me try and play the whole intro really slowly one last time, and then you can get to work on all these different licks. Here we go, one more time, the full intro. those were the first 16 bars of Deep River Blues. There's a lot here to get your teeth into, but as I told you in the beginning, as soon as you can play this, you can almost play the entire song. The only really different thing is if you want to add in the single note solo. That is something completely different, but everything else, the accompanying part during the verses, as well as the second solo, all heavily rely on what you already learned in this very first section. So get to work, have fun getting this into your fingers, and I will be back next week with the next part of the song. See you there. Bye bye.